Bonsoir, dear friends. Bienvenue. The end of August. You're having an amazing summer, I know. I'm having even a better summer than you do because I've been spending time with an amazing, talented young lady. She's absolutely incredible. This is why she's on our show. She is a brain in every way you can imagine. She was trained in France. She's totally bilingual. And she did all her education at Harvard. She's a doctor and a doctor and a doctor. And we thought she would be an amazing candidate because obviously we live right now epidemics, we live all kinds of very unique events in our life, and we've been living that for centuries. We never enough speak about it, but now it's on the forefront of our life. She has a doctorate degree in computational epidemiology. Remember, I'm a Frenchman, hard to say in French. She's now running the show at one of my favorite medical center in Northern California, which is obviously UCSF. So very, very famous hospital and research center and educational network. So we're delighted. She loves wine and she has so much to tell us. And she's bicultural as well. So can you imagine? She has it all. Yulin, welcome. Yulin Hswen. Woohoo! Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Comment ça va, Yulin?
Ah, très bien.
Oh la 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 la. So dear friends, do you agree? And I want you on your chat to do the clapping and the thumbs up and the lips. Isn't she gorgeous?
Thank you. Thank you. You're
Hey,
too kind.
can you believe if we'd be at university together, I would change my curriculum. I would go to the medical school. Not that I would be accepted, but I would be in the library to hand you the books.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would absolutely be thrilled. With a glass of wine on top of it, right? That's
well, let's have a toast.
Cheers.
Chin chin. Cheers. Santé. Chin. So, Yulin, before even we move to Harvard and the medical world,
yes,
from your background, I'm going to go right into my world of France. What attracts you to the French culture?
Oh.
And you got a degree in a French school. I mean, this is a huge deal.
Yeah. So, I did my time there at Aix-Marseille in a field of behavioral economics, and it's really trying to understand behaviors and trying to shift behaviors, based on either different forms of like messaging and framing. And so in particular, because I'm an epidemiologist, we deal with a lot of public health interventions. And so, how can we kind of, again, be able to relay messages to the public where they are going to then adopt, those messages and turn them into behaviors? And what's the best way to kind of frame it in order for people to adopt them more readily?
Wow.
About France, I mean, honestly, and I'm not just saying this, you can ask anyone. I mean, I just think France is the best, number one in everything. I mean, you have the best food, you have the best cheese, wine, fashion. I'm trying to think.
The wine came number 3. So you like food more than wine?
So I would say the fashion
to hurt my feelings.
Probably jewelry is probably number 1. I think you're the best at jewelry. See your Cartier watch. Is it a tank?
That's right. Yes, how did you see so far? Yes, it is.
Yeah, classic tank. So that's number 1 probably. And then I would say fashion. The haute couture is just remarkable. It's invented there. I think your food is phenomenal, all the way from, like I said, the cheese, the bread, the meat, just your agricultural processes, I think are phenomenal.
Wow.
Wine, you guys are the best in wine. Although I shouldn't say that, I should bite my tongue. I guess I'm in, it's California. I should be careful now, But yeah, I think the women are really beautiful.
Oh, good.
To be honest, I do. Art. Oh, phenomenal artists. That would probably number 1, I would say. art if I was going to pick any of them.
Well, talking about your beautiful jewelry, on your index finger, you have the beautiful tiger ring of Cartier.
I do.
You're talking about the Panthère. This is it.
Yes. Yeah, the Panther. This was for their 10th anniversary of the Panther.
I love it. Why don't you bring it closer? Because there's two versions, dear friends, of the Panther. The solid one or the one multidimensional.
This is the multidimensional one. Yeah.
I love it.
This was the, it's like geometric patterning to it. So it's hollow inside. And I'm so sorry that I don't know the designer. I should know the designer. I should always know the designer's name. But I love it. It's a little modern. Again, it's a little fresh. So I really like it. I love this ring. So yeah. I love Cartier. I love Cartier. What can I say? It's terrible. I mean, that's all we're going to talk about now. I'm going to talk about computational epidemiology, but I could talk about, jewelry all night long. So,
but this is great to have, as you do, of course, besides beauty and charm, both sides of the brain, the creative and, the scientific. So on that note, as you got my heart a little broken because you named wine third, I'm going to ask you to describe number 21. So what do you think of this one?
I do. I think it's beautiful. To be honest, I'm not, I don't want to by any means say I'm a wine connoisseur. I'm not actually that well versed in wine, but from what I can taste, I think it's absolutely excellent, honestly.
So what does it make you feel? If you had to medically describe the reaction as a professor that it does to your body, what would you say it does?
Oh, well, I mean, the first reaction is it's bubbly, to be honest with you, not the best probably descriptor, but that's going to make me just feel a little bit medically lightheaded, a little bit probably like fancy and free. I always think of, when you have champagne, I always think of you're in like Cartier or Chanel, and they always serve you champagne. That's the type of, at least thoughts that come to mind. Is that bubbly aspect. I think wine has a lot of, just like it is with jewelry or even fashion, there's a lot of emotion to it and there's a lot of stories behind it. And, usually that's paired with an event of some sort. So whenever I drink kind of the bubblies, that's what it always reminds me of,
So what would be your favorite outfit if you go to your garde-robe and we're going to have bubbles together? What would you wear? Besides the beautiful outfit you have now.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is Dries. I love Dries. Dries Van Noten is one of my favorite designers, but absolutely is Tom Ford Gucci era. Absolutely and utterly. Yeah. But I couldn't wear that. It's a little risque, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh, it would be shocked.
Yeah. So I was like a little bit more appropriate to be dressed in Dries, but no, that would be my outfit of choice, especially with this.
And for some of you who don't know Dries Van Noten, great Belgium, designer, and who really, similar to McQueen, maximizes the blend of different fabrics.
Oh, I love that. I mean, again, I love that. I think his patterns and his fabrics are just stunning. He takes a lot from India in terms of their dyeing techniques, and he has a lot of factories that are there, and it's just beautiful embroidery, and he's heavy into beading and printing, and I love that. It took me years though to probably appreciate it more so.
Yeah. Well, great taste in jewelry and fashion, I could tell. So Yulin, why don't you define for us what is the field of computational epidemiology? And you define it for us and tell us what it's all about. And then we dive into this subject that is so fascinating to the world today. Never been so much on the center front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so computational epidemiology is really just a combination of mathematics, computer science, public health, geographic information systems to better understand disease trajectories and pathways. And so, in particular for something like, COVID-19 is really understanding the areas that are going to be more of risk, as well as the factors that are going to contribute to an increase in risk or an increase in, disease. And so it's just using kind of a combination of all those techniques to figure out where and, when the disease is going to hit and who it might hit.
Well, that's fascinating. And how did you get interested in this subject? This is,
Yeah,
I know in medical school, to become a professor, you study all the trends of infectious disease and throughout the last probably 2000 years or more.
mhm.
But it's a unique field. I mean, it's trendy now because
Yeah.
we're centered on it.
But it didn't used to be probably as trendy as it was probably now. I mean, now it's, it's the height of it. I think people actually know what I do, and it's, I think it used to be where I joke with my friends that it's like where fun used to go to die. Where as epidemiologists, we're always saying no all the time. so
Yeah.
or telling people not to do something. The interest in it really, I was always interested in health. But more on the population level, like understanding why things worked the way they were, and why certain populations had different health outcomes than others. And I really I didn't understand what that was, what that would be. And it turned out it was epidemiology. That's what it was. It was about population health. And then, the more refinement of going into, computational epidemiology was really, when I was at Harvard, I saw a talk by, one of my advisors, Professor John Brownstein. He's at, Harvard Medical School right now still, and was my mentor, throughout my doctorate. But he did this fantastic, like amazing, like incredible presentation on, using computer science methods and using this unconventional data to predict, disease outbreaks. And I was blown away by it, and, spoke to him about what he was doing. And, one thing led to another, and ended up, working, in his lab, and, then start to slowly refine my way into that field. So it was really, it was really about, meeting someone who was working in it and seeing the work that they did that really inspired me.
And what fascinates you about this field? And why should we, all of us, start to be interested in it besides, living the effect of it?
So, interestingly enough, please stop me if I tend to ramble about it. But so even though, like, right now, everyone is focused on infectious disease, including myself, because the COVID-19 is,
Yes.
so much a part of our lives. But my field really is in understanding, the social determinants of health. So really understanding, social context and the environment and networks and relationships and social norms, and how that shapes people's, behaviors and ultimately their health. And so what my research is really now focusing on is more of the, better understanding, of, I call it the like uncomfortable truths, which is, how people, are thinking or feeling or behaving about a certain type of topic, and how that and then ultimately translates into, behaviors. And so what I do now is really try to capture information from online social networks and unconventional and underground sources, all the way from like Facebook to Twitter to Reddit. Back in the day, it was Silk Road, to just understand, what people are actually thinking and discussing. And I feel that really, our online world is our offline world, and so you can really understand what people's deep down thoughts are on, certain, like I said, beliefs or practices. And I think that translates into offline world behaviors.
Wow.
So I guess what I'm getting at is your question, which I've totally forgotten now, so I'm sorry, is, you're saying like why is it interesting? Why is it really impactful? Well, it's because, we interact with our digital devices all the time, and so much of our social interactions, especially now, are online, right? And
Yes.
so that is now our environment, and so it's not only what you say or what you do offline that is making a difference, but what you do online that is really making a difference. It's a ripple effect, right?
Yes.
And so you really, I think, people really need to understand that. That's one kind of takeaway from it. And we all have to be accountable for those things, but also that you can glean a lot of just information about people that you know, they would never ever say or do offline, but they do online. And I think that gets to the truth of the matter as to what are people, you know, really thinking and feeling, and then ultimately what people are doing.
So what other trends do you see that you can obviously share that we should know about? Not the confidential one that obviously should be,
Yeah, like
field
trends and
share.
fears. I mean, drugs and drinking are back in style. I think they always were, but you know, more than ever. I mean, that's probably a given. But you know, that's definitely something that's probably appeared more, you know, during the pandemic. You know, it's fascinating how much people are open about, you know, the illegal behaviors and activities that they do. Trying to think. So those online norms are predictive of, you know, what is actually happening in the real world. I think, you know, I think it's general just social trends around social justice, you know, discussions there, but also then the antithesis of that, right, which is, you know, racist and sexist beliefs also are spreading online as well, and are very present in our world, you know. So I think there is, you know, a very strong dichotomy that's out there, in terms of differential views. But that's another story. That's another topic. That's another topic on hand.
Well, you know, you know everything about hashtags. So how are they shaping public opinions today?
Yeah. So you know, hashtags are, you know, like the equivalent of oh, so sorry, I can't get that now. But
Here's a hashtag coming in.
no, I know it's a hashtag. Someone coming in at the door. No, hashtags are like the equivalent, I think, now of like the bumper sticker kind of on your car. Like it associates
Yes.
you with a group, right? And an identity. And you know, it serves as this type of categorical like function, and it allows messages to travel, and people are able to find it, maximizes reach, and so forth. And so they're an important avenue for spreading information. And so,
Mhm.
you know, either tagging a hashtag means that you're part of a group, or even being able to find information, through hashtags, you know, has become a method of being able to be associated with the group, or again, being able to find information readily. So hashtags are just obviously important to use from a business perspective, but also from a social perspective as well. You know, if you want to be associated with a group or you want to find information, they're there. So they're an
Mhm.
important part of, you know, also how at least our research finds information as well.
So now, as we're going to hashtag with wine now.
Now
I
we
think
hashtag with wine.
let's hashtag with foreverness.
Oh
So
my,
now we're trying a very unique Chardonnay that's
okay.
never been really presented on the show, the one and only, but you love jewelry, so we figured emerald
Oh, I
is
love
part of
emeralds.
the world.
I love emeralds.
And it's all about foreverness. And in our case here, not only Chardonnay, but Napa Valley. So
Ah, beautiful.
fits very well your outfit and your hopefully your fashion sense.
Thank you.
Everybody could see it. Can you believe we partnered with Swarovski here? And on every bottle by hand, we actually apply that unique piece, as you can see the profile of it, embossed of this amazing stone for a Napa Valley Chardonnay. So this is meant to be the eternal love to stone, the earth, and jewelry. So cheers on this one.
Cheers.
And I need your opinion on this wine. I want to listen from what you smell to what you sense to how it makes you feel.
Hmm. Ooh.
Is it caressing your body the right way? Is it bringing you a foreverness style? That's the one you want to find forever.
No, it's beautiful. I'm not just saying that either. I taste, you know, almost feels like nectar, almost. Um, like I said, whenever I have wine, for some reason, it's with wine. Like when I picture myself drinking this, I do picture myself in the south of France, probably in a field, a beautiful field of lavender. I love lavender. Yeah, and how does it make me feel? I mean, when it, when it touches my tongue, I feel as though it's almost like, again, it's almost nectary. It's almost like I bits of honey. I feel, sparkle.
So we all want to be the bees on your tongue, attracting the honeys.
Yes.
I'm talking for Dylan's perspective.
Hi, Dylan.
So tell us about, the mental health in general and what you call digital phenotyping and all this trend that we're seeing, how it's impacting minds. Because I drink a lot of wine, so I became saner thanks to wine. It brings me down to all those, social activities that everybody do and
Right.
all that. But as a professor of medicine, tell us your version of that.
So in terms of digital phenotype, that was a term that was dubbed by, again, my advisor, Professor John Brownstein, as well as Jared Hawkins, who are both at Harvard Medical School. And it's this idea around how, like I said, we are interacting with our digital devices 24/7. And so what ends up happening is we leave this type of, digital footprint, and so accumulation of those kind of data points, whether it be, like I said, searches on Google or your Fitbit, you can gather information kind of about your health. And so in one of the studies that I did, I'll cite it, Schwen et al. 2019, is really about how you can really determine someone's, potentially mental health by how they are tweeting. So in terms of what times of the day, what words, what sentiment, what emotions they're tweeting, and seeing how it fluctuates throughout the day compared to either a control population or compared to your norm, right? So you can determine, someone's kind of state of mental activity, based on, again, their digital profile. And one of those profiles can be obviously Twitter. The second point of kind of your question about, the mental aspect of everything that we're kind of going through right now.
Yes.
I think it's a difficult time. It's a very difficult time. It's very mentally draining, but also I think, the fact that we don't in other pandemics or in other, maybe not necessarily pandemics, but in other moments of crises, you're able to combine together with others. But in this situation, we're not able to. And, we understand social connections are very important for mental health. And so that becomes a little bit more difficult. And even though we have technology, even us, face to face or technology face to face, it's not the same as, having that one-on-one human connection in person, right? Like you said, the touch of a woman, well, very important in more than one context. A hug from a friend, a touch from a significant other or family member. Those are all really important. So I can understand why there's a lot of mental anguish that is currently out there, plus of everything else that's going on, stress, economically, fear, and so forth. But I do think there's a lack of a social component that humans need to have in order to survive.
What else would you say, Yulin, we may have learned in the process from your medical, background, of course, yourself as a professor? And what have you learned and what advice do you have for all of us?
Oh my goodness.
I know it's a biggie, but I know you spend a lot of time on this topic. So
yeah. I think it's, it's very classic. I think we don't think about it enough, but, what you think, and how you feel and what you believe really translates into what you do and the actions that perpetuate. And so your mind, it's just so important for you to have knowledge, and information, but also how you're thinking about certain ideas, and the importance of that and how that actually impacts yourself, but also the world, that every person really is a part of something bigger,
Yes.
and that it has this ripple effect. And so just knowing that even your small thoughts that you have on a daily basis, you might not think it does, you're not making any actions of it, but it does, it does
Yes.
in some format, and it does have a ripple effect, and it affects someone, and it affects the environment. So I think that's what I've probably learned more so. And then always, I think from a scientific point of view is, always just the continuation of learning, and
Mhm.
but
Critical.
aspect of, like, in terms of really the depth of learning, like do your research, learn more about, we, again, this is based on everything that I've known in terms of obviously doing research degrees and everything and so forth. But we take information so readily, right? In terms of, we hear a quote, or we hear a tidbit of information, go beyond that and do your research, read up on the topic, go in depthly into it and learn more about it, have those, deep conversations with yourself and with others to learn more about it, so just don't take kind of the flutter of information that comes in from every direction, right? Social media,
That's right.
everywhere. It's just something that I think is important. Like, trust me, I'm no fun at parties, because I literally am sitting and will type out things and then go and read it, 5 textbooks about it later on to cross-check all the references. And so, so that you just know, that the information that is coming to you has depth to it. That's all.
Mhm. That's important. Where do you see, in terms of more epidemiology, some trends that you could maybe share? I mean, many people say, okay, COVID-19 is one, but there's more coming. There's other issues we're facing around the world. And a lot of, books have been written on the fact that the 21st century will be all about that again for many decades. So
So what
that's
do
my question.
I think, so it's been a shift, actually. So even though COVID-19 has been, front and center, I actually think it's more around social justice. That is, I think, the next huge wave. If not, it's now. That all we've, I think, one of the biggest lessons that we've learned from COVID-19, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of people have known it for years, researchers like David Williams and so forth. Another one of my advisors, but has, talks again about the social determinants of health, right? The environment and the social disparities within our society that mimic social, disparities in health, right? Is that, the world is inequitable. And so health has become inequitable, right? And so we're seeing now that health isn't just genetic or biological, right? We're seeing it's made up of so many other factors, right? And a lot of them are socially determined by, history and structures and systems that we hadn't, at least I personally, or you personally, maybe didn't have a decision in. And so I see the field now as that is the primary focus, is how can we start to shift those structures and shift those systems, so the National Institute of Health in the US, huge focuses on, structural racism, systemic racism, social and societal forces. I think that's, epidemiology has now really shifted towards a social justice lens, even in the, the medical fields, and everything in terms of healthcare and how we treat patients is more encompassing about the social dimension.
Yes.
To ask me where the future is, that is where the future is. I think we are, as a society, evolving, socially versus, biologically. And one of those things is becoming more accepting, more understanding, more environmentally conscious. But that's huge. That's in every discussion now, which I think is really remarkable. I think that is the future.
Well, I'm so glad you're touching on it. And you're the prime example, of course, as a very successful lady in your field and encouraging diversity. I mean, why is it so important to you to want to increase this diversity, not only in the workforce, in leadership, in women, in gender, in religion, and all that. As I serve,
as you serve this, yeah,
because I know this is the main evolution, which I'm so glad to hear, rather than hearing, oh, we're going to have another COVID 25 now,
I mean,
22.
I mean, I think it's going to last for a while, so that's not like I do believe that. But no, I think you caught me on a good day, or maybe it's the wine that I'm positive today. You know, trust me, that we have some dark days as epidemiologists. Trust me. So today's a good day.
I'm sure you do.
So
that's why we need wine. That's why it's a twist off. It's easy to open.
Oh, thank goodness. Yes, you can. Poor Jennifer. I was out just beforehand. I bought like I don't even think I have a corkscrew in my house, and she was like, "It's okay."
But we don't want you to hurt yourself with those tools. You know, you probably know the scalpel better.
In terms of diversity, yeah, you know, it's really interesting. It doesn't just have to span, obviously, in like the medical realm, but in all realms, including, you know, television, film, and in fiction and nonfiction. You know, I think you need different perspectives to get a different narrative. And
yeah.
Right, is that the issue is when you have one vantage point that you've only seen, you know, and you're only seeing it in one experiential viewpoint, you know, you're never going to get the entire picture, right?
That's right.
You're going to see the other side, right? So even with stories, like, you know, I was even discussing it with my friend today, actually, but I grew up on James Bond films. I love them. I adore them. But they're pretty sexist, right? And so those narratives, right, and they're fantasies, right? They're fiction, they're fantasies. They're fantasies from a male perspective, right? And the women are beautiful, and trust me, the French women, Brigitte Bardot, beautiful, absolutely. I've always wanted to look like Brigitte Bardot, you know.
Well, you are the same version with black hair.
Thank you. Sophia Loren was my favorite, but she's Italian, right? So, but you know, grew up on those styles. But you know, that is, you know, in the stories that you grew up with, even the Disney ones, right? They're from a certain perspective, right? And
that's right.
It was an ideal that was from a male perspective, you know, potentially a white male perspective, and so, you know, and especially how film influences and dictates social norms as well, and trends. You know, people grow up believing that that's how, you know, society should be. And so we need to have different narratives and stories.
Absolutely.
In order to generate, again, you know, a better understanding of like the world, right? So in that context, in terms of science, you know, that's kind of an easy one, but you know, you need, you know, one of the things is, for instance, and I'll pour this one in just a second, so I apologize, but is like even for instance, like when you have medical practices and you have, let's say, in diversity in terms of blacks and whites, right? In, you know, their medical textbooks, for instance, you know, a lot of the patients are white. And so in terms of the skin coloring, if there are textbooks that are, you know, defining a rash, for instance, as a certain type of coloring, it's usually based on white skin.
That's
and
right.
So if you know, are a black person and you go to a doctor and they see like they see it like maybe something on their skin, but they haven't seen that as a problem because their reference point is a rash on a white person, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so they don't diagnose that as bad, hence why they get late stage diagnoses, because, you know, to them, they've never seen that type of condition, right? Whereas again, if you have, you know, patients that are involved that are, you know, of color, but you also have, you know, physicians or researchers that are of color, they understand that, you know, potentially that rash it's actually a rash. There's actually something wrong with their skin. They're seeing something different. You know, and so because they have a better understanding of, you know, their own bodies and, you know, their own ailments that are occurring, and their perspectives. And so you can integrate that into research, you know, and same thing with females, you know, our hormones and everything. What's incredible is, you know, it's like 80 or 90% of, you know, studies on, you know, on rats, for instance, you know, used to be all male. And so they never used to study what it would be like for a female rat to, you know, take medication and for the
fascinating.
and what type of side effects would occur because the hormonal differences, right? But nobody thought of those things, right? Because male rats they were easier to work with because they didn't have a lot of problems. It makes, right, from a scientific point of view, okay, well, male rats, but no one thought, oh, well, female rats might actually react differently, therefore females might react differently. And so again, that kind of diversity, both in terms of the level of, patients, but also in terms of leadership to better understand, because you have that understanding because you're living that experience.
Yeah, this is amazing. Yeah. Not only as people within the hospital, the workforce, or the world in general, but all the testing, all the scientific research, we certainly known as diversity oriented.
Right, exactly. Lots of studies in general and obviously there's a history of medical racism and so forth. So that's why populations of color are not as trusting in the medical system and want to participate. But, even in research today, we have huge issues around recruitment where it's primarily, very homogeneous population, both in terms of age, socioeconomic status, sex. And so you're only really studying one population and how they react to certain interventions or certain diseases. But you need more diversity to better understand how it actually impacts, not just on, like I said, the biological level, but the social conditions people are living in that actually impact their overall health and well-being.
I love it. You're really opening to us a whole different area of diversity that we maybe don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see behind me, we have our good friend John Legend, who is very involved in that as one of our partners. And we see it one way, but you're really showing us another way. In wine, we believe in diversity. We are bubble, white, rosé, red. Any color is a point of research for us. So, now let's go to red, the red wine now, Yulin, because we want you to answer the big question of what inspires you.
Oof.
Besides jewelry, fashion.
Yeah, now, I mean,
social trends,
oh
the brain. Ooh, this is smooth, isn't it? What do you think of that?
Deep,
I'm going to try more of it.
Very passionate. Great for the question. What inspires, right?
Well, look at that. Foreverness with a ruby this time.
Oh.
Because we like every stone. We're very diverse in our approach.
In the stones as well.
This is really suave. We're having quite the tete-a-tete, Yulin. Ooh. It's too bad that we're hundreds of miles apart.
I know. Look at this color. I love it. It is like a beautiful ruby.
What else do you feel when the wine touches your tongue?
Oh, this is much a more passionate wine. This is. I was wrong. Probably in the beginning, I said that was Gucci. I would say this is more Gucci Tom Ford, probably.
Well, we could use Dolce too.
Oh, we could use Dolce.
Animal prints.
We could.
Cavalli.
Yeah, that is true. Absolutely. Yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, very passionate, a lot of depth. I taste probably, again, cranberries. I see this like as this is a lounge type, like a club room type of vibe.
Ooh.
I like that, Maybe even, I haven't done leopard in a really long time, but maybe even leopard print. Just like
why haven't you done leopard in a long time?
My
doctor showing up in leopard would be very nice.
Yeah, I haven't done. I just don't think I've done leopard in a while. I have a Dolce in the closet that's leopard. I love it. I just haven't done in a while. I think it just hasn't made an appearance in the last while. Probably the pandemic. Probably that's it. Where am I going to go in like a leopard print Dolce dress? Although I lounge around the house in them sometimes.
I could see you in tiger too. Panther and tiger.
I don't have any tiger. I don't have any tiger. I'm trying to think if I have any tiger. I don't have any tiger print.
Except a ring.
Well, this is panther, but that's leopard. Panthers, did you know that's a panther? Panthers are black leopards. Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I collect leopard and panther, real real ones when you come to our wineries,
Yeah.
specifically in the room you would want to see, which is the red room at Raymond. We have real taxidermy leopard
Oh my
and
goodness.
panther,
Yeah.
and we even have a lion.
Oh my God. Wait, and you live in California? How do you do? How do you do?
Well, we hide it from the people who don't like that. So tell me, as the last few questions, what inspires you? Because I
Yeah.
cannot see you really in the bathtub reading about textbook and maybe epidemiology.
Yeah.
Although, is it what you do? I
Yeah.
can see you more reading fashion magazines.
No. I mean, I read research articles all night long. So, I mean, that's what I do majority of the time. I don't think fashion magazines, I don't think I used to, but unfortunately I haven't done magazines in a super long time, but inspires me. I feel like it's very classic, but it's so true, is obviously my mother. I mean, she's so graceful, and she inspires me because of just her composure and everything she does,
Is she a doctor as well?
She is not. No, she is not a doctor. She was into fashion. But it's just more the case of, I think, just being a female that is, grew up in her generation to be so strong and so powerful, but also having an elegance to you. I think it's a difficult balance to have. And then raising me, for goodness sake, I mean, that wasn't, I mean, oh my goodness, no.
Well, when I look at your awards and honors since being a child, because I have the whole list, I think, dear friends, just for you to know, there's like 3 pages of honors and awards. So I think you were an easy child. You were winning everything.
Yeah, thank you. No. She was she was absolutely excellent. Like, in terms of, my entire life, I don't think I've never once heard my mother ever raise her voice in her entire life. And, that's remarkable, because I'm telling you, that is not me. That is not me. So I can tell you that's a remarkable feat, to have. So she's incredible. Yeah.
Well, now, as maybe a personal question before the big question.
Oh my goodness.
What is your dream, Dr. Yulin?
Yes. What is my dream?
That's it.
Oh my goodness. I mean, okay, so I'll give you, oh man, to be selfish and a little egotistical, is probably immortality. That's the dream, but more out of, like, in terms of the scientific sense. I want to generate a paradigm shift in the world. And so that really means, shifting knowledge in some capacity, where you make a discovery where it changes everything, for instance.
Like Marie Curie.
Yeah, yes, like Marie Curie, or, finding out the world was round instead of flat. There's just a paradigm shift, understanding the world in a different way. And I want to contribute to that, but also egotistically, I want to be immortal for that reason. I think
Very honest. That's great. That's a fabulous dream.
Yeah. So that's my dream. Think other things, like, in terms of probably the more artistic, creative side. I'd love to write a fictional novel or a screenplay. I love stories. It's probably,
what would it be about if you did it?
Probably something around, like, social evolution, but in a fictional format. How
With a love story, a passionate story.
Yeah, absolutely. There always has to be a love story. There has to always be a love story. There always has to be a love story. I'm a sucker for love stories. Of course, there has to be a love story, but the love story can't have, like, a fully happy ending, though. It has to be a realistic ending. And I think, it's like, all the best stories, are melancholy. They're not like supremely. They're not rom-coms. There has to be sadness in it. It can't end in all, sunshine and lollipops. There's got to be some form of tragedy that happens in that way. There's got to be that kind of trajectory, but instead of it, like a rom-com coming out with a bang, it's got to have some. It doesn't have to be it. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a horrible ending by any means, but I think it has to be a realistic one. And I think the world is prepared for that now. We're seeing that more in stories and film, that sometimes things do not end, sometimes things don't end happily, but that's okay too, right? The world moves on and you leave a footprint behind and it's okay, you know? So we'll
I'm
see.
with
But
you.
I do like the idea of always, I do believe in, I believe in soulmates and so forth. But that doesn't always have to be, they don't always necessarily always have to be together, you know?
I love it. I cannot wait till the story is written. Now, Dr. Yulin, professor, I should say, professor.
Yeah.
What is your big message to the world? It's our last few minutes together. Well, just via the Zoom, of course, we'll see each other, I hope, very soon at the winery. You'll come and see us in Napa Valley.
Yeah. Oh, what is my
What
message?
would be your big message to all of us all around the world? Because luckily, tonight and over the next months, many people will be very inspired by you, because this was so much fun spending the last 45 minutes together. And we learned so much, and you gave us such a different perspective on what we talk about typically, because you brought a subject that we've never brought up on the show, which makes it so special. So what's your message to all of us here at the end of August 2021?
2021. I'll give you two, because I'm greedy.
We want more than one.
One, I think the classic one is read more. I think reading is super important, like
Mhm.
learn more. So, but read textbooks, just read. Don't watch, or even listen, read. Actually read. Reading is important.
I love
You know,
I'm happy to hear that, because I'm not a big TV watcher, even though we have a lot of friends in the movie world and who produce great television shows and all that, but I'm with you. Reading is the key. So thanks for
something
this.
about the written word, the written word is important. It's powerful, right? The pen is mightier than the sword. So read in order for you to write more, and to be able to say more and to be able to have greater action. I do think that's important.
The pen is mightier than the sword. I like
I know it's cliche, but it's true. It is very true.
the good cliche.
Yeah. And then the other one is make new friends and outside of your network. Don't be caught up in the silos that we've generated in our world. Every algorithm on the planet has made us just, be connected to the same people, to buy the same things, to do the same things. But try to think about going beyond that. Talk to someone new every day. It's COVID, but when we're wearing masks, we have to social distance. But try to gain a new perspective. Try to talk to someone new. Try to cultivate a new relationship. That's what's really important now, I think. And that's what I really think is going to. Oh, it sounds so cheesy, but it is going to
I
be.
love it.
That is
reading.
reading.
Pen is better than the sword. And you gave us so much of an amazing perspective on the world, Professor. Thank you. This is exciting, and congratulations. I really want to commend you for all what you've done in such a short period of time, and being such an inspiration, bring such a new perspective as well on diversity. We have a diversity committee that is made of a lot of ambassadors who promote our wines.
Wow.
And we keep it at one level, of course, which is racial differences, religious differences, gender, and all the practices we wish, from freedom of speech to action to LGBT to anything else. But we never really looked at it in the way of testing and medical research and all what you've talked about, which was fascinating as well. And finally, what a field you're in. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I would like you, if you can, one day to come and visit.
Oh, I would adore that. I would adore it.
And to all your patients, prescribe a lot more wine, because that's the solution.
The solution to everything. Well, hopefully you always share a glass of wine in good health with someone, right? That's
exactly. So on that note, I'm going your way. Here we go. Chin chin.
Cheers.